One of my favorite creative tools dropped a new version this week, and they also introduced a virtual AI music studio with their program. It's Suno. The version is 5.0. If you want to skip directly to me talking about the studio and what you can do with it, go here. Otherwise, let me give you just a little bit of background on Suno and what I use it for and why I like it. It's one of my favorite creative apps for sure. Nothing has got me so excited about music as Suno. It's an AI app. Came out in 2024, pretty early on. It was considered the Chat GPT for sound recording, specifically music, not really sound design or sound effects. And of course, it ruffled a lot of feathers. There's a lot of people who are against AI in any form whatsoever, regardless of the fact that it's as ubiquitous at this point as the internet, electricity, digital works, be they, digital photography and video or file sharing or digital means of recording. I myself am trying to keep an open mind about AI, knowing that it has a lot of potential to superpower an individual creator. I have been making music for 25, almost 30 years at this point. I have done it with other people. I have worked with singers. I have tried dealing with producers. I have done quite a bit of my own electronica that's sort of in the vein of the plunderphonics that I grew up with, like DJ Shadow, maybe Manifesto, more ambient, artsy electronica like Aphex Twin. My heroes would be like Pop Lead itself and Clint Mansell and maybe Manifesto and Future Sound of London, groups that use a lot of sampling and have kind of like a potpourri gumbo to the sound that they're trying to articulate. And I certainly learned how to do music by listening to 9 Inch Nails, specifically the Fixed EP, which was like a remix EP of Broken, and it was just really wild and really caught my attention as an art piece when I was maybe 16 years old. Anyways, over the years, I've done all these different methods. I've done ambient guitar stuff like Daniel Lanois. I worked a lot with GarageBand specifically, and Adobe Audition, of course. I've always had this vision in my head that I wanted to articulate, and I could never find the right group of people to do it with. Certainly not have the money to go to a studio and make it all myself, nor could I play guitar the way I wanted it to be. A lot of times the music that I want has so many effects laden stuff that you would require thousands of dollars of pedals and plugins and things that are just kind of like beyond where I'm at as a musician. Also, my preference in all things is to work mobile, things that I can fit in my backpack, like the laptop, the iPad, the phone, smaller cameras. I want to keep it in my backpack because I want to also be in environments when I create. I want to be by the ocean where I live, or by the Korean Bell in San Pedro, or on public transport when I take the train up from Long Beach to Upper LA or something like that, or on a plane. I'm just more creative when I'm out and about, and less so when I'm in my house, and certainly not when I'm in a studio. I mean, I like photo studios, okay, but I always have this like ticking clock in my head that I gotta get out of here, I gotta get this thing done, and it never gives me time to explore or experiment. These are reasons why I gravitate towards working with something like Suno. I have a really strong vision of what I want, which is a yearning, ethereal female singer who has grit and a punk edge and a wide range, so they can be very like soft and emotional, but they can also scream like the best of the Riot Girls. And I want guitars that have kind of that chiming U2 aspirational aspect to them, but also as dynamic and punishing as something like Muse would make. And I want things that have like a certain level of energy. I like dance punk music a lot, kind of the post-punk revival era of the Killers and the Strokes. I like things that have gritty production. I like a lot of electronica. I like a lot of plunderphonics where there's, samples and the break beats are kind of gritty and funky, and they've got generations of smut on top of them. I don't know what you want to call it, but they're just like dirty rhythms. I like dub music that has echoes. I like industrial textures. I like things that also evoke other eras, like the 60s. I like things that are oceanic. I live by the ocean, and I've sort of absorbed this kind of vibe that I think comes from having repetitive waves come in and really being around something that's so vast. So this is the vision I had for my own music project. It took a long time to get to it. Suno has had a lot of growth over the year, leaps and bounds. And what I will say about it is early on, I was not impressed. That was over a year ago. Whatever their next generation was, it allowed you to upload samples of pre-existing songs, which it'll let you upload instrumentals of things that it can't find copyright for currently. In the early time, I could pretty easily cut up Phil Oakes or U2, which are the two remix projects I did last year that utilized Suno. I could cut up parts of their songs and upload them, even with the vocal of Phil or Bono, and I could have it reconstruct a version that utilized that stuff. Now, current Suno does not allow you to do that. If it senses a vocal, it will spit it out and say it can't use it. If it recognizes copyright, I think it's got like a wider breadth of what it recognizes now. It's probably not going to let you do anything with it, and it won't let you replicate lyrics that it believes are copyrighted lyrics. I had one song recently, I wrote the words, but it maybe had a common phrase in it or something, and it spit it back at me and says, we can't use this, these words are from a copyrighted song. And it totally wasn't, it was just off the top of my head. But this is my Suno journey. Early on, I used it to remix other artists' songs for my own fun and education and experimentation, because specifically Phil Oakes, you know, he's long passed away, but he's a hero of mine, and I've made animations about him. I wanted to see what it would be like. For almost like 15 years, I've been wanting this project where it's like Phil Oakes, John Denver, but produced by the Future Sound of London and maybe Manifesto. What would it be like? You know, very psychedelic and trippy, with that kind of folky atmosphere, but translated it into avant-garde electronica and plunderphonics. Since then, I developed my own particular singer, Magdalena. Suno introduced personas that allowed you to keep a consistent style, consistent singer across most of your projects. And as 4.0 rolled out and 4.5, the quality got a lot better. It sounded a lot more like professional recording quality and not so much like bit rate, kind of garbagey things that you could tell had some artificialness to them. And by the way, I'm not against artificial sounding music. I spent a lot of my teen years and early 20s listening to electronic bands, The Prodigy, The Chemical Brothers, The Orb, The Orbital, you name it. You know, if it was sold as a electronica act, I was gonna buy it. Even though, you know, looking back, the quality wasn't there. It was a lot of bandwagon jumping, or like this feels new and fresh because it's new compared to the Pearl Jams and the Soundgardens and the Green Days and whatever. It's just kind of like recycled rock and roll that was being sold to us at the time. Since put out 2.5 albums, several EPs under the Magdalena name. I've put out some works that I've done as soundtracks for my own film projects, my animation projects, ones that are a little more like Eric Satie, but with modern electronica production. My Guillermo short film project has influences of both Aphex Twin, Nine Inch Nails, Eric Satie, and the kind of soundtracks Guillermo del Toro would use in his films, like Pinocchio had a carnival atmosphere to it. Nightmare Alley had a darker noir carnival atmosphere to it. So I was able to articulate this vision using Suno. It's a great creative tool and so liberating. And I know there's plenty of people who think generating stuff is just a matter of typing a prompt and then getting something back. And I'm telling you, that's not the case at all. If you take it seriously as an artist, you can definitely start with your own melodies. You can hum straight into your phone in Suno. You can use works that I've been using, works that I created in the 90s and remixing them with Suno. You can replace sections, you can extend them, you can take whatever you get in Suno and play other instruments on it yourself. You can do your EQ and your production. You can take the stems and remix them in other things, GarageBand, Adobe Audition, so on and so forth. You could take a Suno track and then just use it as a demo and then re-record it entirely on your own. There's so many ways that Suno is useful, and also how you can shape and craft what you're doing in it. So now we are in My Suno Magdalena. We have Studio as our second option here. To get Studio, you need to have the premium subscription, which ultimately will be $30 a month. Currently, I think they're prorating it at $15 a month, but don't quote me on that. I was pro up until I got the premium subscription. If you've never used Suno before, there's probably other lessons that you might want to start with. My super quick talk about the basics would be in Create, you have a custom setting where you can either add audio that you've already created or gotten off of a sample site. You can create personas based off of things that you like and want to reuse that you've already generated, or you can even base a persona off something somebody else has already made in Suno. And then Inspo is where you can drop in songs or playlists for things that you want your track to be similar to. The lyrics, I tend to write all of my own lyrics. I think it's the best way to do it. The writing that AI does in any format, not just Suno songwriting, but in any sort of like narrative writing, tends to be very flat and cliched and utilize the same set of words. In fact, I think writing is one of the things AI does the worst. Styles, they have, simple suggestions of genres and tempos. I'll tell you that my types of prompts are a lot more detailed. I'll go ahead and click one of my halfway homes just so you see what we've got here. I have my lyrics with structure in the brackets, and my prompt might be something like a raw Grebo new wave fusion surges with growling synth disco, the bass, relentless. And then I talk a lot about the vibes. I talk even more about the vibes than the actual sounds that I want. I'll ask for things that are mysterious and gritty or surreal, phenomenally catchy, hypnotic, spiraling. Those kind of words are more evocative than saying, I want a metal guitar and I want drums. So you have 1,000 characters. You can be very, very descriptive and evocative. You can exclude styles you don't want. A lot of us don't want the snaps and the sort of cheesy modern production. I certainly don't in mine. And then depending if you have a previous track you're working on, it'll have a tab for audio influence here, but also there's style influence and weirdness. So if you want it to conform more to this, turn the style all the way up. Weirdness being all the way up is very chaotic and bizarre, and I usually keep the weirdness turned down a lot. That said, we are now going to venture over into Studio, but first we need stems. You only get stems by spending credits. So this is my song Halfway Home. I have a playlist that has the majority of the good ones. I've generated this song I don't know how many times. I can tell you it's like between songs and extra parts that I've edited in, it might be over 500 at this point. I'm going to work with the one that says Pop Punk 2 because I think that one generally has a good sound and it doesn't have a lot of artifacts, meaning like glitchy flaws to it. To get my stems, 3-dot menu, get stems MIDI. It's going to cost me 50 credits, and when you're a premium member, you get 10K credits a month, so 50 credits isn't that bad. It's going to give you 2 iterations of the stems. It's going to give you a version A and a version B, and it takes a little bit to generate. If you push this and you only see like vocals, drums, bass, and synth, and it's missing all the guitars or the effects, just give it another few seconds, it'll come. And here we have stems version 1. One thing to note about how Suno breaks down stems, this song is very guitar heavy, but if you look at the picture of the waveform of the guitar, it doesn't have a whole lot going on. That's because Suno misinterprets sounds quite frequently. The wave that says it's a synth or other or FX might very well be what you hear as guitar in your final mix. So keep that in mind. Generally, drums, bass, and vocals are interpreted exactly the way they should be. So now I've got version 1, I've got version 2. I'm going to go ahead and edit in Studio. And this is going to open my editing session for this particular song. The layout of the editing session is very confusing, generally because it has all these panels. You can close panels that you don't need. So this closes the library panel, this closes that, and you can pinch zoom or swipe zoom to get in and out of your multi-track. You have playhead here. I'm going to open up my library panel again. I'm dealing with the song Halfway Home. This is all for Cast Away, not what I'm specifically looking for. So go ahead and do a quick clear of the search, and I see the stems that are in use have a little marking with the color that corresponds to where they're at here, and the stems that are not in use are not there at all. Why are some stems not in use? Because this is version 1 and this is version 2. That's an important distinction. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick listen at what we've got right now. Okay, everything's kind of piled into the center. This is the original, by the way, on the top. I'm going to keep that off. I don't think having everything piled in the center is really helpful for the listening experience, no matter what you're making. And the reason is that there's only so much space in any sonic universe. There's only so many frequencies that the human ear can hear. And the more dimensional you make it, the more you have like a guitar on the left channel and a guitar on the right channel, then maybe the better off you are. So first things first, I'm going to go to my guitar. I'm going to pan it all the way one direction. As you can see, it's not so much the guitar. I'm going to take the same approach with the synth, and I'm curious what the FX is, so I'm going to solo that. That's the S. Okay, sounds kind of like guitar to me. Kind of hissy here. Those kind of hissy sounds I'm not a big fan of. I'll go ahead and lower the volume of that straight off the bat because I want to clear up some sonic space. Now, if I have my synth and my guitar all the way to the left, then what's going to be in the right? Well, let's take our other version of guitar, drop that in at the bottom, and pan it all the way to the right. Let's take our other version of a synth. Once again, drop it at the bottom, pan it all the way to the right, and see what we've got cooking here. We're going to unmute this. And already I can hear a big improvement. I'm listening to this in my AirPods as we are doing this recording because I can play this without the original. Solo the original for contrast. I'm going to kick up the drums a little bit. I'm going to pull the vocal back just a little bit. I definitely like, in my rock, alternative, post-punk revival type music, I like the vocals to be a little lower because, listen, it's a human being and we're really rocking out. Also, I'm a big believer in what Mike Patton says when he talks about the vocalist just being another instrument woven into the fabric. Same for the backing vocals. If you'll notice, vocals have these gaps here, but the backing vocal fills it in. That's actually the chorus vocal. Why it separates it this way, I'm not perfectly clear. I'll go ahead and drop in version 2 backing vocals and reposition it next to the other backing vocals just to put them side by side. And you can see there's definite variation. I wiped out my drums in doing that, but they have totally different interpretations of what constitutes a backing vocal and what constitutes a vocal. Very strange. I'm going to undo what I did, so my backing vocal is back down here. Let's see what happens if I throw the backing vocals in opposing channels. Well, I can tell you from that listening experience that we are a little bit off. Shift it forward. And you'll have to be pretty zoomed in to make sure that your tracks are flush. There isn't quite the magnetic type of track alignment that you have with Adobe Audition. Once again, we'll give this a listen, see if we're back to normal. As we've been listening to this, you'll notice that this BPM fluctuates a little bit. And for my own sanity's sake, I like to lock in a consistent BPM because I might go into a sample site or put this in GarageBand and want to have loops that go along with the track. And if it's going to fluctuate a little bit, that makes it very, very difficult. Now, you could easily alter this to be something like 140 BPM, and it's affected the entire track globally. Not something that I particularly want to listen to, but it's good to experiment and maybe make some slight adjustments. A lot of my tracks are really high energy and they come out maybe too fast, or I have too many songs that I want to put in a collection that are all one tempo, so this is a good opportunity to make some variations. 154 is a nice consistent tempo. There is a metronome here, and the reason for that is because you have the opportunity to record your own sounds. Let's say I had this track and I wanted to do it with my own guitar. So I'll turn off the guitars and the synths that sound like guitars. It's just going to be voice, bass, and drums.
The press keeps calling, the future hums, both are places.
And now I could have my own guitar playing all those guitar parts. I could turn off the vocals and have my own singing be the vocals of the song. Nobody wanted to hear it. It's all caterwauling. But still, these are options you have. Panning, volume control, tempo control, recording. These are the basics of what you can do currently in Studio. Will they have a lot more features coming in? Of course they will. Do you have the option to replace some of the stems with alternate versions of the stems that aren't made yet? Yes, you do. You can also split tracks and then move them around. So let's say I wanted to cut out this entire section of drums. Yes, I could. Let's say I wanted to take that entire section of drums and move it to its own track to change the volume into something else. Yes, I could. Like, these basics are kind of universal with all multi-track editing softwares. What's not present currently are filters, are ways to manipulate the bass and treble as far as, you know, where they fit on a graph. There's no way to EQ things like I want to take the bass up a little bit. I want to take the treble down on almost everything. I find a lot of stuff that comes out of Suno to be really hissy, to be honest. That's not currently available here. You can add a take lane and then, you know, remix this the way that you remix anything else. in Suno, which is, let's go to bass. We go to the three-dot menu and you have create, remix edits. You can do new versions of the bass. I have not really found this to be quite useful yet because what happens is it'll put in other instrumentation and stuff. And you can add in multiple takes of things. So if we go into our three-dot menu where it says drums, it says add take lane. And if I had other versions of the drums I wanted to drop in here, or of my uploaded audio that I wanted to drop in here, I could, and then experiment by switching the speaker on and off between the takes. I'm hoping there's more filtration. I'm hoping that it has better quality to the stems coming forward, because I can tell you that if it can generate a song that sounds good out of the gate, I don't see why Suno can't generate something like a stem of the drums that don't have any of that sort of artifacting you get when you pull apart the main audio into stems. I don't see why Suno can't just generate a whole new stem that doesn't have the artifacting, all this kind of noise you see in the front before it gets to the drum sound that has that kind of cut up bit ratey sound of AI pulling apart stems. So every song that we mix is going to be different. You're going to have your personal taste. Like I said, I like to spread around the instrumentation, have guitars in both channels, have different kind of synths playing in both channels, maybe even have two versions of the bass playing in both channels. I know a lot of bass is recorded mono and placed in songs that way, but I think that maybe like percussive elements and bass elements and bass takes in each channel just make it a more rich listening experience. I will show you what it looks like when I've exported my waveforms out, and I'm going to compare a waveform that is what Suno gave me to start with before I did all my Suno Studio work, and then one that I've done all my mixing in, and the version that I exported out of that. You can see that there's just so much more dynamic range in the waveform. Even if you're not familiar with seeing waveforms, you can tell this one's very flat, and it's a rocking song, which means that the drums, the guitar, the bass, the vocal all cap out at a certain level, and it's very compressed and dense. Some people like that sound for some things, but I don't think it's great. Definitely not when I'm listening on AirPods. I love to have that rich experience between my two ears. And I love the dynamic range of things that are soft in some sections and loud in others. And that's what you get when you mix your own work, rather than just relying with whatever the AI spits out at you. You don't have an EQ currently in Suno Studio. Hopefully that's like the next thing they offer, because for my own personal musical taste, I don't like really trebly sounds. I like things that sound kind of vintage, like they were sampled from a record, the way that maybe Jeff Barrow from Portishead would do things. Certainly for certain sounds, I either want them softer and treble, or I want the dynamics to not spike so much on the sharp parts. I want it kind of like a little bit braked on some kind of instruments, like a vocal. Anyways, you can regenerate sections. The drums I regenerated for Castaway did not come out the right timing at all. It was way off, and it's probably likely if you spent so many credits regenerating sections, you'd get something that would work. That's not what I was looking for when I was doing this. If it's going to cost me a lot of credits, I might make an alternate version of the track with no drums, and knowing the BPM, which is listed on your Suno Studio, you can go into something like Splice and get drums that maybe are more of your taste and suitable. Splice is a sample based app that has a monthly membership. I have a number of credits there. You're never really totally stuck with everything that you get from your original track. When you've exported a track out of Studio, you'll see Made with Studio tagging next to the song. Some of the features that someone might be expecting in a digital audio workstation are actually already available for the Pro members. You don't have to be a premium member to access these things. It's under the editor. So in the drop-down menu, Remix Edit, open an editor. As you can see, the song is broken down into its component sections. You can pick these up and shift them around as needed. You can select lyrics and replace sections. You can change your lyrics if you have things that aren't working out or you think need to just to go completely. You can edit all of that in the editor. I would do all of this work before you get your stems and edit in Studio. And the reason for that is when you go into Studio, you want to have a complete piece that you're mixing. Same goes for if you want to extend a section, meaning we take the song as it exists and we snag a part where the back half maybe isn't interesting or it's not working, or we want to have some sort of instrumental section, guitar solos and things that people used to always want. That's something you want to do before you break apart your stems and open it up in Studio. Your final mix, in theory, should be your final mix. Suno Studio, you can change the volumes, you can pan one way or another, you can cut sections, and you can change tempo, and you can change key, and you can change the pitch, and that is pretty much the extent of what you can do currently in Suno Studio. You can also introduce your own sounds into things. So if I had an alternative track and I wanted to be the guitar that plays along with it, I could put my headphones on, mute or not include the guitar in the studio mix, listen to it, play guitar at the same time, record that, and maybe on my iPad, because GarageBand has virtual amplifiers and I'm listening on my computer. And then you can take that track and upload it, and now you've got a mix of the song that doesn't include the Suno generated guitar, but your guitar, or same with a vocal or any other kind of instrumentation that you want to personally be involved in. How does it compare to just generating the stems and putting them in your own audio editor like GarageBand or Audition? Well, when you're done with your edit in Suno Studio, you can then generate the new song and it builds it out of what's there, but it doesn't have all the artifacting that the individual stems have. That's pretty cool. Also, it auto-saves your projects. And I can tell you from doing a lot of multi-tracks in GarageBand or Audition, it eats up a lot of my own personal hard drive space, which I just can't afford it. No, I'm just kidding. It eats up my personal hard drive space, and I lose that multi-track ultimately, or I have to delete everything, and then maybe 6 months down the line when I get better headphones or I listen to it, I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking? I have to recreate from scratch. Much, much easier to keep it within the Suno Virtual Studio, kick out what I need. There's a lot of things that it could have. As I said, I think filters and ways to change the instrument would be cool, kind of like GarageBand. If I have a recording of one synth and I want to change it to a different kind of synth, it's super easy to do. You can just swap instruments. You could even swap your virtual guitar or whatever, or you can copy this guitar performance and then paste it into something else, a different kind of instrument, and then it'll be playing what you've done in one with the other. Suno doesn't have built-in instruments where I can say, okay, my singer and this kind of guitar that I've built, and maybe, say it's a combination of a Rickenbacker 12-string, similar to like George Harrison might have used, or the Byrds, and what the Edge uses from U2, and it's got the kind of wild effects that Matt Bellamy or Tom Morello might have. You can't just build a guitar and keep it in a shelf in Suno. That would be one reason why you would want to have your own live performance involved in things, if you had your own personal style built out of all these racks of equipment and things that are pre-existing. But I don't have that. I'm going to work with Studio as it is. I think, the potential, everything in Suno is grown exponentially in 1 year. It's amazing to think of how bad things were I was amazed in the beginning, quite frankly, and as I've gotten better at articulating my vision and using Suno like a real artist uses a tool, and being able to make things that are like so far and beyond actually most of the music that is coming out that I normally would have listened to. It sounds almost like the stuff that has come out from my favorite bands. Let me just name off who has released music in the last couple of years. So 9 Inch Nails has the Tron Ares soundtrack. U2 had a single 2 years ago, Atomic City. Muse put out Unraveling. Tegan and Sarah, The Killers, Suzanne Sunfor, Aphex Twin put out a big collection that was awful, to be honest. And then, repackaged Selected Ambient Works 2, which is probably like the high watermark for me, with just a couple new tracks. So many of my favorite artists have released new music in the last 2 or 3 years, and very little of it has caught fire with me. I mentioned Populate itself as one of my favorites of all time. I don't like any of the new songs they put out. And it's not because, I've changed. I just think like a lot of artists have a limit to what they do before they start running out of ideas or inspiration, or the limits of the technology that they already own, the gear they already own, the way that they play those instruments. I've heard many artists like Matt Bellamy. He looks at a guitar and he's created so many unique compositions in 20, 30 years, and he looks at it as like, what else can I do with this thing? And he finds new things to do with it. But yeah, you can kind of see the style baked in. Maybe after a certain point, they run out of things to say. They run out of things to talk about. They run out of good lyrics. They've just been in the game so long that they've kind of forgotten to be fresh. I don't know. I don't want to peg on my favorite artists because honestly, they're my favorite artists. But I have found the things that I want to say in music are the things I want to say and nobody else is saying them. The sounds I want to hear in music, the kind of songs I want to hear that go from like huge genre shifts and have tribal textures that have a vastness to them, that combine something that's soft and deep and maybe even avant-garde with things that are plunderphonics, that have a female singer that can go from sweetest, most catchy dream pop to hardcore thrash. I have to make the things that I want, and you have to make the things that you want to hear. If you have a strong vision of what you want to hear and what you want to say, I think you shouldn't let anything stop you, and you should make those things and say those things. And if you're like me and you like working with modern tools and you like making mobile, or you like articulating a full vision regardless of budget and who you get to work with, then I highly recommend you give Suno a shot. I got an affiliate link down below. You sign up, you get some credits, I get some credits. And, I'm open to hear your complaints about Suno. Sometimes those complaints help make it better and maybe even, affect how it feels for the old school crowd who think that, sitting on your bed with an acoustic guitar is how you make music, which I don't think it's been that way for a long period of time. If it does something to take away the aspect of the industry which involves predatory producers, middlemen, the vampiric aspect of all the industry that sucks the life out of, well-meaning idealistic creatives, and it just allows you to communicate your heart and your soul directly through the use of AI, then awesome. Best of luck to you in your own creative endeavors. Talk to you next time.